Hello friends, my name is Lalit Soni and you are watching Drishti IAS. As you are aware that general election 2024 has been concluded and now we are waiting for the results. As we are talking, there is a counting which is going on and probably by the end of the day we'll be witnessing a new Lok Sabha and a Prime Minister. When we talk about India, the highest constitutional office is attached to the office of President, but still India holds a significant role for Prime Minister. In India, Prime Minister matters a lot. In this video, we will see why Prime Minister matters in India, what are the powers and privileges which are attached to the office of Prime Minister. So let's start our discussion. So when we talk about India, no discussion of government or politics can take place without talking about or mentioning one office, that is office of Prime Minister. When we are talking about Article 74 Clause 1 of the Constitution, it provides that President exercise his power only on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. And when we are talking about this Council of Ministers, it is headed by the Prime Minister. So that is the significant role Prime Minister has, because everything, all kind of decisions which are taken by President, they are basically on aid and advice of Council of Ministers, and Council of Ministers is headed by Prime Minister. So basically you can say that the existence of the Council of Ministers is dependent on the Prime Minister. If Prime Minister resigns, Council of Ministers also goes away. Okay, therefore as the head of the Council of Ministers, the Prime Minister becomes the most important functionary of the government in our country. Since the Constitution provides for a parliamentary form of government, a real executive power that is vested in Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister as its head. As I told you, when we are talking about the constitutional head, that is President. Okay, so we can say that the nominal power or nominal head is considered as President, and when we are talking about the real head or the executive head of the government, okay, that is basically Prime Minister, because he will be the one who is heading the Council of Ministers over here. Okay, and ultimately this Council of Ministers is advising the President. In parliamentary form of government, or when we are talking about in the parliamentary form which we have in India, there is a role of executive which is there, and this executive or the Council of Ministers, which is basically you can say forming the government, is there in the government because of the support of the majority. When we are talking about parliament, you know that parliament is basically consisting of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and President. These are basically your legislature, and when we talk about this legislature, to come and form a government, there should be a majority in the house. Okay, and as far as you are having this majority, you have the power with you. That is, you are forming the government and you lose the majority and you will lose the power to form the government. Okay, so basically here you can say this support by the majority also makes the Prime Minister very powerful. The moment he loses the support, he will loses the office. Okay, so ultimately when we talk about the parliamentary form of government, the support of you can say majority is very much important over here. Okay, now here in India, Prime Minister enjoys preeminent place in the government. Council of Ministers cannot exist without you can say exist without Prime Minister. Okay, as I told you, there should be a Council of Ministers that is headed by Prime Minister, and Prime Minister if resigns, then Council of Ministers has to resign as well. Okay, now Article 75 says that the only Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. Now Article 75 says that the President will appoint the Prime Minister, and once Prime Minister is appointed, he will advise the President on the appointment of the ministers, and that is how he will form a Council of Ministers. Okay, now the Council of Ministers comes into existence only after the Prime Minister has taken the oath. Once he has taken the oath of the office, then only he will advise to the President to go for the appointment of the other ministers. The Constitution does not say very much about the powers of the Prime Minister. As I told you in other sessions, there was this thing, when we talk about the Constitution, there are very limited places where you will see that very you can say powers or you can say definitions are given. When we are talking about the Prime Minister, the kind of role Prime Minister plays in India, all the powers are not basically mentioned in the Constitution, but as a head of the government, he has very important role to play. But as the head of the government, Prime Minister has wide ranging powers. He chairs the cabinet meetings. Okay, when we are talking about cabinet meetings, it is important because when we are talking about the you can say government, you have a Council of Ministers, okay, which is headed by Prime Minister, and within that you will have a cabinet. Cabinet basically is a body of important ministers, which, or you can say a smaller body in India, which is a decision making body, or the important decisions are taken over here. Now Prime Minister is the person who is basically chairing the you can say meetings of the cabinet. So he is the, you can say, most important or most powerful person in the cabinet. Okay, all minister works under his leadership, and prime minister distributes and redistributes the works to the minister. You must have heard that prime minister is the one who distributes and, you can say, the portfolios. Okay, and he will be the one, if some minister has to resign, then he will be the one who will actually advise the president to go for the, you can say, removal of a minister. He also has power to dismiss a minister. Okay, when the prime minister quits, the entire ministry quits. As I told you, without prime minister, council of minister will be of no use. Now thus, if the cabinet is the most powerful institution in India, in the cabinet, within the cabinet, prime minister is the most powerful. The powers of the prime minister in all parliamentary democracies in the world has increased so much recently. Then we can say that now this parliamentary form of government most of the time is also referred as the prime ministerial form of government. Okay, why? Because in the parliamentary form we have seen that there should be a majority for a executive to work over there, or for a government to work over there. And if the prime minister is a strong candidate, if the prime minister is holding the majority over here, in that cases we can say that the power will increase. Okay, so recently we have witnessed these trends all over the world, that these powers are increasing, or you can say powers of a specific person is increasing in the cabinet. So that is why we are calling parliamentary form of government as the prime ministerial form of government. Okay, now moving further, you can see the prime minister acts as a link between council of minister on one hand and president on the other hand. Okay, whatever happens, whatever kind of information president requires, okay, that he will be requiring through the prime minister. Okay, whatever is the link is there between council of minister and the president, that link is basically prime minister. Okay, and that is why it is also called as the linchpin of the government. Here you can see it is this role of the prime minister which led Pandit Nehru to describe him as the linchpin of the government. It is also the constitutional obligation. Article 78 says that the prime minister to communicate to the president all the decision of the council of minister relating to the administration of the affairs of the union and the proposal for the legislation. Whatever decisions are taken for the administration or for the legislations by the council of minister, they are to be communicated by prime minister to the president. That is what written in the our constitution, article 78. Okay, moving further, here you will see the prime minister is involved in all crucial decision making of the government and decides on the policies of the government. Also, he advises the president with regard to the appointment of the important officials like Attorney General of India, Controller and the Auditor General of India, Chairman and the members of UPSC, Election Commissioners, Chairman and the members of the Finance Commission, and so on. So there are various bodies on, or you can say that these bodies and their members are basically appointed on the advice, or you can say they will be in the select committee. Okay, he advises the president with regard to the summoning and the prerogative of the sessions of the parliament. Okay, so basically there is a link between the president and the council of minister, and that link is basically your prime minister. Okay, other than that also there are certain powers which he enjoys with the president. Okay, he can recommend resolution of the Lok Sabha to the president at any time. He announces the government policies on the floor of the house. He is also the chairman of the Niti Aayog, National Integration Council, Interstate Council, National Water Resource Commissions. Okay, he plays a significant role in shaping foreign policy as well. Okay, he is the person, or you can say that he is basically, when we are talking about countries like India, he is the face of our country, and he will be actually handling the foreign affairs as well. No doubt there is a external affairs minister, but again prime minister is having a significant role to play in the foreign affairs. Okay, now he is the crisis manager in chief at the political level during emergencies. Lord Morley described prime minister as the primus inter pares. Okay, that is first among the equals and the keystone of the cabinet arc. Okay, other than that, Sir William Werner, he has said that he is inter stellas luna minor. That means that moon among the lesser stars. Okay, so these are certain adjectives which are placed on the prime minister when we are talking about the constitutional role. Now, thus the power wielded by the prime minister flows from various sources, that is control over the council of minister, leadership in the Lok Sabha, command over the bureaucratic machinery, access to media, projection of personality during the election, projection as the national leader during the international summits, etc. So, and the foreign visits, as I told you, in the foreign affairs as well, prime minister has an important role to play. Okay, now if we move forward, we will see that as the political parties have come to play a major role in the politics, prime minister controls the cabinet and the parliament through the party. Now, when we see most of the cases where we see that there is a prime minister, most of the time he will be belonging to a political party. Okay, and now through this particular political party, he will be controlling the politics over here, and Prime Minister will control the cabinet and the parliament through this particular party. Okay. In India too, we have seen such tendency towards the concentration of power in the hands of the Prime Minister. As I told you, world over we have seen that there is a concentration of power in the hands of Prime Minister, and in India also we are seeing such trends. The extent of power wielded by the Prime Minister also depends on the personality of a person. Okay, so that is quite visible. There are various examples in the history. Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, exercised enormous authority because he has a great influence over the public, because he was the first Prime Minister, and you know that he has served for a long time. Okay, so we can say that he has an influence over the public, and that is why he was more prominent leader at that point of time. Okay, then Indira Gandhi was also a very powerful leader compared to her colleagues at the time when we are talking about the cabinet, and that is the concept, that is the time when we have been introduced with the concept of kitchen cabinet. Okay, because in the cabinet also there was a smaller cabinet that is called kitchen cabinet. Okay, that was the concept which we scholars say that was there in the time of Indira Gandhi. Now, however, the power which Prime Minister wields are actually put into the use upon the prevailing of the political conditions. Now, whatever you can say powers Prime Minister has, that depends on the political you can say environment in the country. When there is a majority, Prime Minister will be powerful. When there is no majority and parties are going for a coalition government, the power of Prime Ministers are reduced at that point of time. Okay, the position of Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers has been inaccessible whenever single political party has secured majority in Lok Sabha, which you can say that right now when we are talking about the last two Lok Sabha, that is the case. Okay, however, this has not been the case when government has been led by the coalition of the parties. Okay, so whenever there was this coalitions, when we talk about the time of 1990s was a time when we have seen that in the one decade we have seen more than 7 prime ministers at that point of time. Okay, so when we are going for the coalition, powers of prime ministers are reducing. You can say that the stability of the government is also reducing. Okay, so that is the case with the coalition governments, because at that point of time prime minister is not working as a leader but actually as a, you can say, bargainer between the parties. Okay, since 1989 we have witnessed many coalition governments in India. Many of these governments could not remain in power for the full term of the Lok Sabha. As I told you, in this particular time, since 1989, for next 10 years we have witnessed more than 7 prime ministers at that point of time. Okay, why? Because they are not able to complete the terms, because there was instability in the government because of the coalitions which they have formed. They were either removed or they resigned due to the lack of support of the majority. These developments have affected the working of the parliamentary executive. Obviously, if the leader is, or you can say there is no stability in the government, policy making will be very difficult. Okay, most of the time prime minister or the parties will be there, you can say concerning about the stability of the government, concerning about being the prime minister at that point of time. They will not focus on the developmental issues. Okay, in the first place, these developments has resulted in growing discretionary role of the president. Obviously, if prime minister's role is reducing, okay, and now president has to decide every time between the coalitions that who will become the next prime minister, that time you will see that discretionary role of the president will increase. That is one thing. Second thing is that when we talk about these particular times, okay, most of the when we are talking about the hung parliament, when we talk about the parliament when there is no majority, okay, post of president becomes more powerful. Okay, whichever party he will favor, they will give their prime minister to the country. Okay. Secondly, the coalition nature of Indian politics in this period has necessitated much more consultation between the political partners, leading to the erosion of the prime ministerial authority. As I told you, the power of prime minister will reduce at that point of time. Thirdly, it has also brought restriction on the various prerogative of the prime minister, like choosing the ministers and deciding their ranks and portfolios. Okay, if there is a single majority party, prime minister knows that who will be the minister from his own party. If there is a coalition of various parties, then he have to take everyone's opinion in consideration. Okay, so he will not go for his own members, but he has to go for the members from the other party as their ministers as well. Okay, so in the council of minister itself, there will be some kind of, you can say, divide. Okay, so that is the case when we are talking about the coalition governments. Fourthly, even the politics and the programs of the government cannot be decided by the prime minister alone. Political parties of different ideologies come together, both pre-poll and the post-poll allies, to form a government. Okay, so as I told you, in the coalition various parties will come, they will have various agendas, so the policies will not be made by a single party but with the coalition. So there are times the interest of one will not align with the interest of others. Okay, Policies are framed after a lot of negotiation and the compromise among the allies. In this entire process, the Prime Minister has to act as a negotiator than as a leader of the government, which we have already talked about. As I told you that he will be the bargainer or negotiator most of the time rather than being a leader of the government. Now coming to the end of the discussion, we will see that we have seen that what is the political scenario, we have seen that what will be the case, how Prime Minister will be appointed, what will be the powers of the Prime Minister, why Prime Minister is so much of importance in India. Now coming to the vacancy of the Prime Minister, how they will vacant the seat, how the office will be vacant. Okay, so how PM's office will get vacant. So one is resignation, so that is obvious. There are various Prime Minister which has given the resignation. Then when we are talking about death, there are various Prime Minister, they have also because of the death, the Prime Minister's office has got vacant. Examples are Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, then we have example of Indira Gandhi. Okay, then if there is if President has asked someone to come and form the government, and then now they have to come up with the confidence motion, and if they are not able to get it passed by the Parliament, then they have to vacate the office. Okay, so that is the third case, when the confidence motion fails. Okay, and the last one is when no confidence motion is on the floor of the Parliament and that motion gets passed. So these are the four conditions when you can say that Prime Minister office will get vacant. Okay, so with that we will wrap up the session over here. So have a good day. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.